I want to make one announcement. You know, we're supposed to be doing next week global professional sports, and this may have to be postponed because several of our guest speakers have been unfortunately detained by other things. So do not necessarily come here until you check our website and make sure that the show is on next week, okay?
Good.
But the following week, as I think you know, we will have a special program here on April 28th, in which we have a number of Boston Globe reporters who have been spending time in Haiti and will have returned from Haiti, and will be talking about what they saw, their experiences, how they covered the story, and I think that's going to be quite fascinating. So stay tuned about next Wednesday, the 21st. Certainly try and be here for the 28th. It should be fancy. Well, last week it was architecture, and we got some wonderful comments from people who were here. The week before it was jazz. Tonight we're going to look at film and theater. And we've invited three absolutely marvelous people to join us for this evening's presentations. We're going to start with Patrick Jerome, who's a new friend of mine. Patrick is the director and founder of the Boston Film Festival. And International Film Festival, and will tell us about the International Film Festival and his life in film. And tell us on how this got developed, what it does, and also give us some real good ideas about what's going to happen next week at the Boston International Film Festival. And you will also want to pick up one of these before you leave so that you can make sure you also get to the festival. Following Patrick, we'll have my friend Eric Stange. Eric is the founder of Spy Pond Productions. He's done a number of wonderful documentary films and other films he's going to tell you about. He's won a number of awards, including doing work for PBS, the Discovery Channel, and the BBC. And before he was a filmmaker, he was actually a journalist. He wrote for the New York Times, the Boston Globe, the Atlantic Monthly, and other publications. He's a recipient of Harvard University's Charles Warren Fellowship in American History, and he's on the board of Commonplace. I've known Eric for many, many years, and I've always enjoyed his work. And then finally, Spiro Valutis will be joining us for the program. Spiro is a dear friend. He is the artistic director of the Lyric Stage, Truth in Advertising. I am on his board. I have been attending the Lyric Stage since 1975 as a season ticket holder, and I think it is the best theater and certainly the best value in theater, not only in Boston, but certainly on the entire East Coast, and I include New York City in that. Spiro is in his 12th season at the Lyric Stage and has made it into one of the most spectacular venues in the city. He has many awards, including the Elliot Norton Awards, Independent Reviews of New England Award. He's been honored with the 2006 Elliot Norton Prize for Sustained Excellence over many of these years. He's one of my favorite people. He's one of my favorite directors. And he also, every once in a while, is one of my favorite actors, particularly when he played any particular role which you may imagine in Cat on the Hot Tin Roof earlier this season. So we'll start with Patrick, and then we'll go on with Spiro and Eric, and then right. Thank you very much.
All right, Barry. Thanks for having me here tonight, and thanks everyone for coming. And thanks to Bill Dickens as well for having me here tonight. Oh, hello.
A little bit.
All right, so my name is Patrick Jerome, as you heard, and I'm a filmmaker. Actually, I started since I was, I have to say 12 years old, because I went to a movie theater for the first time. I was 12, and I said, this is what I want to do later on in life. And so about more than 30 years later, this is what I'm doing. And that's very accomplishing for me, in a way, and very interesting to some other people. Tonight, the subject is global film. And I would like to talk a little bit about my experience coming from a third world country. Actually, I'm from Haiti. And I've been living here in the United States since 1993. I came to the US because I made a movie. As you can, I mean, movies usually are a reflection of what's going on in society. And us as artists, we use the medium to express ourselves, to talk to people, and to make connection. So in Haiti in 1989, I made a movie called Ruthless Gang about the insecurity that was going on in Haiti at that time. After the premiere of the movie, which was on September 22nd, 1991, 8 days later, we had a military coup against the government, and then the military came after me, so I had to flee the country to come here to the United States. Just to say that what we call movies, we may sit at home and watch. Here in the US, you may find it pleasant and interesting, but in some other parts of the world, it can put your life in danger. And some people may see it really as a threat to the message that is coming from it. And from my experience being in this business right now, I work for the Boston International Film Festival, which I created. And as the founder of the festival, it's kind of bring the international experience, and this is what we face every year. The festival has been going on for 8 years now, to see the way of thinking, the mentality between third world countries or European countries and the United States itself, in terms of society, the setting, what we call movies that we watch to entertain us and also to educate us in a way. And the differences to me are very interesting, not only economically, artistically as well. Because here in the US, when you're sitting at home, you're watching a movie, there's a lot of channel, there's a lot of setting that exists in this society in terms of rating, how films can be distributed, and how parents have control over kids. And so basically you are aware of what's going on. And when in some other parts of the world, it doesn't matter. You go out to a theater or you are at home watching a movie. Some places they can play them at any time. But I can only talk about Haiti because this is where I grew up. This is where I started making movies. And then the difference is that we've seen by doing the Boston International Film Festival and having movies so far, we have received movies that came to the festival from about 67 countries. And the artistic differences are really major. And another thing that is very important is the fact that it's the technology today. Today you find that it's more easy for people to make movies than it used to be before because of the digital revolution or development that happened in the world. So that impact so many societies in terms of financial way of making a living. Like in some countries in Africa, like Nigeria, for example, there's a lot of movies. They are one of the top movie producers in Africa, where a lot of people are making their living in their society by making films that are getting distribution from family to family or from the internet, from door to door. So that's kind of create some kind of an impact in itself in the movie industry comparing to the American movies. The American movies, for example, in Haiti, in the last 10 years before the earthquake that happened in Haiti, you see before it used to be where any movies that release in the US that get translated in French, get released in Haiti as well. You see those movies get into the theater, the theaters were packed with people. What happened in the last 10 years, whenever there's a Haitian movie that was made in Haiti, and by the way, they get released like 4 or 5 of them every week, the theaters, they always stay in the theaters for more than a month, sometimes 2 months, kicking out the foreign movies, which kind of have some kind of a financial impact from the US when they exported their movies to those small countries because of that, new ways of making movies, and people feel connected to them as well as they are living there. So, to me, it's a very important thing that is going on in the world today, as we see much of the movies that are made are from independent filmmakers, because most of the studio movies, it's more of an independent thing now. There's a lot of movies coming from Hollywood that are kind of uniform, and also that have the same setting that we used to see in movies. That doesn't really have, especially when it has to do with entertainment. When it says, when it's a movie, for example, if it's an action movie, you see a good guy versus a bad guy, and then at the end, the bad guy dies. And what happens, that's the end of the movie, and that's usually the setting. But when you see what happened in the independent film, there's a more connection with what the everyday life, the experience people are having, the subject that they choose to make movies about. The drama that they bring, their experience. A lot of them are getting based on true stories. So for me, it's a very interesting process to see those movies as, like I said, from the Boston International Film Festival perspective, that they come from everywhere. Here, you see the type of delivery that exists right now in the movie industry. So, I guess that's about it. I don't know if you have any other questions later on. Thanks, Barry, for having me here today. I don't know if I still have some more time. And
we'll have lots of time in the questions and answers.
All right. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Stange, and as Barry noted, I started out as a journalist, and I worked for the Boston Herald and wrote for the Globe, and was actually a film reviewer sporadically at one point for the Newton Brookline Tab, as it was then. Many of you remember those days, and also for the Boston Herald. And it was really fun being a film reviewer, I have to say, but it also made me realize how completely ridiculous that whole enterprise is, because I knew perfectly well when I was writing reviews that I could have felt very differently the day before or the day after about a particular film. And I wasn't professional enough to say, oh, I really shouldn't be doing this. I love doing it. But I also found, as I did those things, that I enjoyed writing about filmmakers and interviewing filmmakers and writing about the production process of making films as much as I did reviewing them, in fact, probably more. And I slowly gravitated away from reviews and got more and more into getting to know the film world, somewhat the national film world. I mean, if there happened to be an actor or a director of a big film coming through Boston on a publicity tour, I often got to interview them, which was fun. But I also got to know the local film world very well, and as most of you probably know, Boston's not known necessarily for its feature films, but it is known internationally for its documentary films. And as I met more of this community, this would have been the early mid-1980s, I began to realize that they were having a lot more fun than I was writing journalism. Film is usually a very collaborative process. It involves a lot of different stages along the way, including writing, which I didn't want to let go of. And so I essentially decided at a certain point to try to make the switch out of journalism into documentary filmmaking, which turned out to be a lot harder than I thought it would be, but it took about 5 years, but I eventually got there. And one of the, I think, best things about it, there are many things I've enjoyed about it, one of them is the chance to travel and go to different parts of the world. I'm slowly working into this globalization idea. I mean, I was really fairly surprised at how many stories I was able to get involved with as a filmmaker that involved going, nowhere too exotic, but I got to go to Russia just at the end of the Soviet era, which was exciting. I got to go to England several times, not too foreign, but Lately, I've actually gotten to go to slightly more exotic places, including the Marshall Islands, which is probably, I bet, a place that no one else in this room has been, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Not very many people get to the Marshall Islands. So in that sense, filmmaking proved to be a somewhat global experience. But more and more as I've been in the business, can you hear me okay? Should I speak up? More and more as I've been in the business, I've discovered, I've found, as have all my colleagues, that there really is less appetite, or at least less market for films, documentaries about other countries. And I don't think that surprises anyone who, as Patrick was alluding to, I think that who sees that Americans like films about America, and we don't really go to very many foreign films. In fact, doing some research for this talk, I discovered that foreign film viewership in theaters is way down. It's just been going down steadily for the last 10 years, 15 years. And what is on an upswing is actually the trend in Hollywood to take foreign films and remake them in an American fashion with American actors and an adapted American storyline. I can't say exactly that is happening in the documentary world, but certainly there seems to be less appetite for sending documentary filmmakers like myself to other countries to capture bits and pieces of the international story, which does seem kind of surprising, given that we are, in many other ways, a shrinking world, or a flattening world, as Tom Friedman would say. And it's a little strange that we don't, especially in the public TV world, which is mostly what I work in, that we don't really do want to get out there and learn more. Better? And learn a little more about the world around us. But of course, the internet has changed everything. It's changed a lot of things, as Patrick was saying, in film distribution. It's also changed a lot in documentary filmmaking. I mean, to be able now to get a camera and an editing system for a few $1,000s and make a film and put it on YouTube and show it to the rest of the world, perhaps, if anyone's looking, is pretty amazing. So for every sort of reversal in what I consider the big distribution worlds, the national television world, the wide theatrical release, there is the internet possibility to make up for it. I just wanted to show you a couple of websites, actually, that I think are very interesting. So I'm sure most of you know the PBS series Frontline. A couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4, Frontline started Frontline World, which is a really different model. Frontline films on PBS tend to be fairly high budget, polished hour-long films. Frontline World, the model, at least as far as I know about it, has been to find younger filmmakers, young journalists who are doing stories that aren't necessarily an hour long. They tend to be more sort of magazine format stories, but they really are all around the world. And it's one of the ways, and they do get broadcast. I'm not sure exactly what the schedule is these days, but they also are available on their website in their entirety, which is a big deal. It took a long time for PBS to get around to being able to show a whole film on the web. I mean, people have had hesitations about that for years, but they're certainly now doing it with this and with a lot of other films. There's another website that I just learned about recently that is really interesting to me, and this was a sort of chance encounter with somebody in Montreal who has started a website devoted to inviting people to send in films about people doing interesting, good stuff around the world. I mean, that's as much as I could figure out about it. I can play a little bit of it. He introduces it a bit.
it's Mark Kielberger from Free the Children.
And it's Craig Kielberger from Free the Children, or in French, Enfants Enceintes.
And you're watching
Vous regardez
Goodness TV.
Okay, well, anyway, there's more to it than that. But it's a wonderful, seems like a wonderful site for people to send in films about things that are going on around the world that the rest of us would never know about or hear about. And for all we know, there are 1,000 websites like this. I'm sure there are. The hard part, of course, is how do you find out about them? And it does often take just either spending enormous amounts of time surfing the web or asking around looking for things. There's one more I'd like to show. Must be easier to get these. This one is really interesting. It is an invitation to people to essentially create an interactive documentary website so people can send in their documentaries. It's Canadian-based also. And people can send in completely personal documentaries, but I think the invitation is to do things that are about social issues of various kinds. And then other people can contribute to them, edit them, as sort of a way to mash up making documentaries. And of course, being the web invites people from all around the world, which I think is a model that we're probably going to be seeing more and more of. So the web, I think, or I hope, can in some ways make up for what feels like a shrinking world in terms of television documentaries and even theatrical documentaries. So there is hope there. I want to switch gears a little bit, and going back to the Boston International Film Festival, Patrick's festival, which, and you should correct me if I'm wrong about this, but a project that I've been involved with, I think, is going to be the first mobile media project to be in a major film festival.
It is.
It is, all right, indeed. So, this is not exactly global. And I applaud Patrick especially for taking something that's certainly not international, because it's a story that took place about 3 miles from here. But it's a model for what we hope can become a kind of international coming together of people around cities, tours of cities. So I'm going to show you a little bit of it. It's meant to be used on it's actually an iPhone app. And it's meant to be used with an iPhone. It's a walking tour of Beacon Hill that is supposed to be done as you walk along with your iPhone. But you can also do it on the web. So you'll be seeing the web version here.
I like the idea of history as jazz. You've got the main groove, but also these in-between notes that make the song memorable. Webster and Parkman were kind of a savage series of notes thrust into the middle of a cheery 19th century intellectual awakening. Webster, an ambitious Harvard professor aspiring to the highest circles of Boston, was accused of killing Parkman, an old Harvard classmate, disappointed doctor, and son of the richest man in Boston. Gruesome body parts were found hidden around Webster's laboratory, and an O.J. Simpson-like trial ensued, which captured the attention of the world. There's a classic PBS film about the case, called Murder at Harvard, that I started watching a lot. The film was all about one historian's quest to get behind that closed door and figure out what actually went down between Webster and Parkman. Most of the events happened here in my backyard, Beacon Hill. And after hours in archives and antique shops, I accumulated various keys, or clues that unlock that laboratory door in different ways. Walk with me into my collection, along a mile stretch in America's loveliest neighborhood. I'm sure you'll never see the polished brass, the stately glass, and these old stones the same. You can start or stop at any of the 8 points on your map, but the story really begins at the hospital, in its central dome, hidden atop Massachusetts General's oldest building. Go to the map section of the application to find your way there. And once you get there, press wax seal number 1